Okay, now in this video, we'll be talking about what you should be doing in the listening section. So I'm going to be breaking down the basic strategy and I'll be showing you what you need to be doing before you start listening, while you are listening to the answers for the questions, and then what do you do after you are done with the listening test. So first, let's talk about what you should be doing before you start listening. So once your listening test begins, you're going to have 25 to 30 seconds of preparation time at the beginning of each question set. So when you have this 25 to 30 seconds of prep time, here are the things that you should be doing. First, always be sure to read the instructions very carefully, because the instructions will tell you how many words your answers can be, and if whether you need to be only choosing one answer choice or multiple answer choices. So always read the instructions. Next, look at all the questions in the question set. So during this time, you should really be going through all the questions. You don't have to read every question, okay? Don't do that. That's going to waste time. So you should really very quickly go through all the questions, and more specifically, go through all the keywords in each of the questions in the given question set. Only focus on the question set for which you are looking for the answers. So at the beginning of the question set, they're going to tell you in the audio tape that you now have some time to look over questions from question number 5 to question number 10. So you should only be paying attention to those questions. Don't look at all the questions, only pay attention to the question set that the audio tape is going to give you the answers for. Next, in this prep time, you should be going over all the keywords, all the important keywords, and underline them or circle them, okay? Mark them. So when I say important keywords, I'm talking about subject, object, and verb. So those are going to be the important keywords. Of course, names, dates, numbers, those are also going to be great keywords. And when we're talking about keywords, if you have taken our Ielts reading course, then you will be very familiar with what keywords are and how to use them. But if you haven't taken our Ielts reading course, I actually recommend that you go ahead and enroll in that course, because the skills that you learn for learning how to answer the reading test are also going to help you to learn how to perform better on the Ielts listening test. But if you haven't enrolled in our reading course so far, then just know that keywords are subject, object, and verbs. Names, dates, and numbers are also great keywords. Names of people, names of places, numbers like dates and times. Those are very easy to identify, so those are also great keywords. I'll be showing you more examples of these keywords and how to use them as we move further in this course. Next, you should try to predict what form your answer is going to take. So first, go over the questions and circle or mark all the keywords. Then if you have some extra time remaining, then come back and try to predict what form your answer will take. For example, by looking at the words that are directly relating to the question, you can determine if the answer is going to be a word or a letter or a number, a name, place, or date, and also its classification. Will it be a noun, a verb, or an adjective? So you can determine these things by paying close attention to the question. Again, you'll be seeing examples of this very soon as well. Finally, decide what you are listening for. So you may be listening for any number of things. This depends on the question. Maybe you'll be listening for some very specific information, or perhaps you'll be listening for a main idea, or maybe you'll be listening for a speaker's attitude or something else. So decide exactly what you are going to be listening for. Sometimes this may not be so clear, that's all right, but as a general rule, you should have a general idea about what you are listening for. So in doing this, knowing the keywords is going to be very important. So usually we are on the lookout for keywords. We try to listen for the keywords, and we also try to listen for the answer that we predict, that we think should be the correct answer. Now, once your prep time is over, the examiners will start playing the audio tape, and these are the things that you should be doing while you are listening to the audio tape. Firstly, listen carefully to the instructions. They are going to state the instructions at the beginning of the tape, so be sure to listen to the instructions. Next, listen out for the keywords and the language that connects to your answers. So you marked the keywords in the previous step, in the prep time. Now you should be listening for those keywords. But here's the thing, I mentioned this before, most of the times your answers are not going to be presented with exact keywords. So, for example, if you were to mark a certain keyword like plant, let's say that you marked the keyword plant. Well, the audio tape may not use the same keyword. Rather, most of the times they're going to disguise the answer in what we call synonym language. They are going to use different words that mean the same thing. So instead of plant, they might talk about a tree or vegetation or something like that, different words that mean the same thing. So you have to be on the lookout for the keywords and more specifically for synonym language for those keywords. Also pay attention to the language that connects to your answer. When I say connect to your answer, I mean what the question is asking you for. So in some cases, the question may be asking you for some very specific information. Other times, it may be a fill-in-the-blank question, for example, and there may be words that come before the blank line and words that come after the blank line. So the words that come before the blank line and after the blank line are going to be what we call connecting language, because those words are going to give you clues about which answer is going to be the correct fit. So really, the answer has to fit to the question. If it's a fill-in-the-blank question, then whatever you answer in the blank line has to fit. It has to fit syntactically, meaning that the grammar has to fit and the structure has to fit and it has to be grammatically correct and it has to make sense. And if it's a multiple choice question, then you are not going to have any blank line, but still there will be specific information that the question is asking you for, and you have to look out for the language that connects to that specific information that is being asked for. So you have to be on the lookout for these things, for the keywords, for synonym language for those keywords, and for the connecting language. Next, the correct answer will almost always use synonym language. So I already mentioned this, and you should be well aware with this by now. Synonym language is the main thing that they're going to use, and in fact, this is the one thing that presents the most difficulty for students, because they expect to hear the exact keywords from the questions, but they don't really do that. They don't give you exact keywords. They're going to give you different words that mean the same thing, so you have to understand the meaning of the question. Next, when you hear the answer, write it down immediately, and you should be writing it down on the test booklet. Don't worry about spelling yet. So if you're not sure about how to spell a word, then don't worry about it. Just spell it to the best of your ability. And then later, when you are transferring your answers to the answer sheet, at that point, you can pay more attention to the spelling. Next, always write something down before you move on to the next question. And you should be doing this even if you don't have the answer. If you're not sure about what the correct answer is, just write something down, whatever you think is the answer, but write something down before moving on. Because you don't get any points marked off for guessing. So even if your answer is wrong, it's still best to guess, because maybe you'll end up getting it correct and you'll get that extra point. So never leave an answer blank. You should always guess if you don't know the answer. Finally, don't get stuck on a question. So if you don't hear the answer because you've missed it, well, don't just stay lingering on that question, because then you're going to screw up on the questions that follow after that question. You have to keep moving on because the answers are going to come one after the other. So if you missed a question, if you missed the answer to a question, just write down whatever you think is the answer and move on. Alright, so once your 30 minutes are up, so during those first 30 minutes of the listening test, you will be finishing all 4 sections, and at the end of finishing those 4 sections, you are going to have an additional 10 minutes. This additional 10 minutes is used for transferring your answers from the test booklet to the answer sheet. So when you are listening to the answers, do not write down the answers directly on the answer sheet. Rather, write them on the test booklet first and then only transfer them to the answer sheet at the end. Important point to keep in mind is that when you are transferring your answers, your spelling has to be perfect. You do not get any points for wrong spellings. Even if your answer is correct and you spell just one letter wrong, you're going to get the entire answer marked wrong. The spelling has to be perfect. Next, I've already mentioned this. If you can't remember an answer, then just guess. It's always best to guess than to leave it blank. Finally, if you have some extra time left, then go ahead and double check your answers. It may be that perhaps you ended up transferring all your answers to the answer sheet and now you have some extra time left. If this is the case, then double check your answers and double check your spelling. Make sure that you have spelled the words correctly. Great. So that's what you should be doing in a listening test. Now I want to go over the basic strategy. So here we go. The first step is that you should quickly read the questions and the answer choices in the given set during the prep time. So when you get those 25 to 30 seconds, then quickly read the questions and the answer choices as the first step. Next, during that prep time, you should mark the keywords, and mainly you should be marking the keywords in the questions because they are going to be the most useful keywords. If you do have additional time, then you can go back and you can also mark some of the keywords in some of the answer choices. Next, if you have extra time, you should also try to predict the answers based on the keywords and based on the language of the question. So try to predict what form the answer is going to take. Then, when the audio starts playing, you should be listening out for the keywords and more specifically for the synonym language of those keywords. Also, be very careful to avoid tricks and traps. There are several different tricks and traps that the examiners will use in order to try to confuse you, to try to get you to pick the wrong answer. So this is something to be mindful of. And finally, when you do hear the answer, then write it down immediately in your test booklet, and then at the end, you should transfer them to the answer sheet. So that's the basic strategy in a nutshell. And this brings us to the end of this video. In the next one, we're going to be talking about how you can improve your listening really quickly.